The Crypt Lake hike was named one of the world's 20 most thrilling trails by National Geographic in 2014. A lot of people wonder if the Crypt Lake hike is dog-friendly, mostly due to the infamous ladder, tunnel, and ledge sections. Is this a hike that you can bring your dog on? After doing the hike with my dog Nira twice now, my answer is still it depends. Come along with us on a trip to Crypt Lake so I can explain why. Hey, I'm Stephanie, a force-free dog trainer. One of my favorite things to do on my days off is hike with my dog Nira. We often get asked about our hikes, so I'm starting a series where we bring you along on our trips and we rate each hike. Come hike with us. I had a few days off work and I wanted to go on an adventure, but the entire province looked like it was going to be stormy. The Waterton forecast looked the most promising, so I decided to go hike Crypt Lake for a second time and I hoped for the best. On the drive down, I started having doubts about my life choices and Nira was not impressed with me. The weather started to clear up once we reached Claire's home, and it was nice by the time that we reached Waterton. To hike Crypt Lake, you either need to have your own boat or take the ferry across to the landing. Waterton Shoreline Cruise Company runs the ferry and it costs $32 per person for a return ticket, but dogs are free. You can't purchase tickets online, but you are able to buy them in person up to 3 days in advance. We bought ours the night before the hike, then we went back to our campsite. Nira often tries to sit in my lap while camping, so I bought a new 2-person camp chair for extra space.
Do you like the new chair?
Yeah. Nira was finally pleased with one of my choices. The night in camp ended up being really beautiful, and I was really glad that we had come. I was feeling really optimistic about the weather as we went to sleep that night. The next morning, we packed up our bags, then we caught the 8:30 ferry. It was only Nira's second time on a boat, and she was not a huge fan of the experience. We had done the hike once before, and we knew how narrow the trail was at the beginning, so we let most people start before us since not everybody likes dogs. I personally find the initial part of the Crypt Lake hike really boring. You do switchbacks through pretty dense forest, and you're surrounded by a lot of people since everybody gets off the same boat. I personally prefer solitude when I'm hiking, so I knew that this wasn't going to be my favorite part of the day. After about 30 minutes of hiking, you slowly get some views, but you are going to head back into more forest sections. You'll find that the crowds do thin out and everybody gets into their own pace of hiking. After that, we only saw people sporadically as we passed them on the trail.
About to leave, already packing, come with me, I'm not really asking, we'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions, we'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow, we can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Be free. Be free with me. Be free. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche, we're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow, we can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out, die with my own doubts. Be free.
Within about 3 hours, including all the time that we stopped to film, we reached the infamous ladder section. The last time that we did the Crypt Lake hike, my partner carried Nira up the ladder like a potato, and it did work fine. However, I've started bringing a doggy carrier bag on hikes now, just in case she gets injured and she can't hike, so I decided to use that. I couldn't remember how bad the ledge was, so on the way up, I decided to keep her in the bag until we got back to flat ground. I have a tremendous fear of heights, and I was practically in tears the first time that I hiked Crypt Lake, but this time I just went slow and I didn't feel any fear. The ledge was wide enough that I decided on my way back down, I would just let Nira follow behind me. After the ledge and chain section, I let her out of the bag and she walked the final 10 minutes or so herself.
It is so pretty.
Time after time on hikes, she shows me that she's much more graceful than I am. Nira was so excited to get to the lake that it was one of the rare times she actually pulled on Leash. We had pre-decided that we wanted to catch the 5:30 ferry so that we'd have lots of time for filming, so we still had 5 hours left. We decided to hike around the lake, letting Nira swim every 5 minutes or so while we looked for a good lunch spot.
Yesterday, there was sun and there was rain. Beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise. And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin. Out of sand, reaching for the grand. As willows align, we lose track of time. Head up high, now we climb. Oh, when we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side, our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Before sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon. Side by side and through. No limit to what we can do.
The nice thing about taking a later boat, solitude finally. So we're almost back down into the trees anyway, but the storm is definitely coming.
Both Nira and I rate this hike a full 5 out of 5. I wanted to take a star off since it doesn't offer a lot of solitude, but it is really gorgeous and it's fun enough that I think it's worth the crowds. Nira wanted to take a point off for needing to spend 5 minutes in the backpack, but there were so many streams and so much lake access that it made up for the backpack time. I would only suggest bringing your dog on this hike if you have a solid plan for safely getting up that ladder section, but otherwise the hike is completely dog friendly. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions and how you would personally rate the hike if you have done it before. If you want to see more hikes that Nira and I have done together, you can find our whole playlist here.